I'm Professor Barnes, and ever since my transfer from the Media and Technology Department, I've been devoting my time to the fascinating enigma of colony collapse disorder. Colony collapse disorder is the phenomenon that occurs when the majority of worker bees in a colony disappear and leave behind a queen, worker bees, plenty of food, and a few nurse bees to care for the immature. To spread awareness about this incipient crisis, I am sending you to our boy in the lab, Dr. Liu.
Thanks, Professor Barnes. The main cause of CCD is currently varroa mites. They can quickly overrun a beehive because of their quick reproduction rate. They can quickly leach blood out of bees, and through that bite, spread diseases and sores. But how do we combat this?
Gentlemen, we can rebuild the bee population. We have the technology to make the world's first mite-resistant bee. Behold, a new bee, a better bee, a Russian bee.
As well as being resistant to the deadly varroa mite, the Russian honeybee can survive in colder climates and can reproduce queens all year round. To get a taste of what this would look like, we are sending you to our resident bee observer, Isaiah.
Hey guys, we're here with our varroa-resistant bees just imported from California. That's right folks, even though they're Russian, they're American-born bees. In fact, they have been introduced to many regions in an effort to curb varroa mites, honeybees' biggest problem currently. Over 2 decades ago, my grandfather, God rest his soul, helped introduce the first Russian bees to America. Now they are in California, Iowa, Kentucky, and Mississippi. Another mite wreaking havoc on the honeybee population is the tracheal mite. While it's less commonly known, it is the second most impactful mite on the honeybee population. You may be wondering, how do Russian bees have a resistance to the mites? Well, we're sending you back to Andrew in the lab to fill you in.
Thanks, Isaiah. Russian bees originated in the Primorsky region, the same area as the varroa and tracheal mites. As a result, Russian bees have over time developed a small resistance to these bees because of natural selection. The bees with even the tiniest amounts of resistance often reproduced more and passed on that resistance trait. Let's go back to the field to observe these bees in action.
You see that Italian honeybee? He's a goner. Based on our results from the lab, that Russian bee has much more resistance than the Italian bee. As you can see, the Russian bees are more resistant to the mites and will decrease the effects of CCD. Russian bees also are not very expensive, with a Russian queen costing about $38 and an Italian bee costing $32. The transition would be relatively easy for beekeepers to make since there is very little difference between the standard honeybee and the Russian bee. They also have very little effect on the environment because of their minute differences between the two species. Russian bees would not only be more resistant to mites, they can also survive in harsh climates with higher levels of pollution. The only problem, as you can see, is only 10% have resistance. But the more Russian bees are used, the stronger the resistance will become, thanks to natural selection. Observe.
Test your might. Test your might. Test your might. Test your might.
now to confirm the results with Dr. Ant, Dr. Lou. Hey, quiet down.
Russian bees are also very safe for beekeepers. According to a study done at North Carolina State, Italian and Russian bees have the exact same temperament or behavior towards beekeepers. Both are gentle and unlikely to sting unless provoked. One way Varroa mites spread are by drifting bees that move from colony to colony. Russian bees also generally have a better sense of direction and are less likely to move from colony to colony.
The bees come from the USDA bee laboratory in Louisiana and are continued to become improved upon by selective breeding. You may be wondering about the difference in honey production. You may be surprised to hear that the USDA studies taking place over several years have shown that Russian bees produce as much as or more than Italian bees. Therefore, Russian bees will be reliable through repeated use and may even bring more profits.
Because of the increased survivability, as well as increased honey production, the solution also addresses the hesitation of purchasing honey, for fear of hurting the currently dwindling bee population. For beekeepers wondering, the Russian bees are generally darker than your current bees.
Also, since there is no technology involved, us beekeepers can jump into the solution right away.